Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we are continuing to move forward through another training camp together. As always, you can find all of our 100% free, 24/7 boots on the ground coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you follow us on social media such as Facebook and Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. Today we are, of course, talking about our reactions to last night's preseason opener against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Jaguars only played their starters for a drive. Starting offense went out there for 10 plays. Starting defense went out there for, I believe it was an 8 to 10 play drive, something along those lines. But not a lot of run for the starters. You ultimately saw the backups get in pretty quickly. But to me, there was still a lot to take away from the game. Of course, it should be noted, this is just a preseason. The Jaguars have looked really good in past preseasons. I want to say they went undefeated in last year's preseason. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it doesn't matter. The end result to a preseason game doesn't matter. And I say that as somebody who, even in the football I coach, we just had our jamboree. And I stress that, I know this game doesn't count, but compete. Go out there and compete. Try to win. And I know it's the same at the NFL level, but it's also a lot of just evaluation. And it's not really, the end result that matters. With that said, there were a lot of things that happened throughout the course of the game that I think are worth talking about. Of course, one of them has to be Cam Little. Biggest story of the night, even overshadowed Travis Hunter. Cam Little making an outrageous 70-yard field goal. To me, the fact they even sent him out there, and I know it probably helped that, again, it was a preseason game, not a regular season game, so you can have that comfort knowing if he misses it, it's not going to hurt you or anything. You can kind of use it as a game to see really what he can do, etc. But with that said, I think that ultimately Cam Little showed the Jaguars that he is more than just a good kicker that he was last year. And he was very good last year as a rookie. But he is more than that now. He is transcending that. To me, Cam Little has shown and has proven that he is on his way to becoming one of the top kickers in the NFL. I thought Cam made an interesting comment in the locker room after the fact. He said, given the chance, he thinks a lot of kickers could make that. It's, more so just about keeping it straight, but they have the leg strength. But not a lot of coaches, I think, would have the confidence in their kicker to do so, to attempt to do so. Liam Cohen had it in Cam Little. I mean, from the own 40-yard line. And he just drilled it. It would have been good, in my opinion, from 73, 74, maybe even 75 yards. It's not like it just barely got over the upright. It was as good of a kick as you can get. And to me, it shows that the Jaguars, they have a weapon in Cam Little. They can deploy him in more ways than I think they maybe even knew. Whether that's setting him up for certain situations, whether that's just using him as a guy who, they're confident that they can get to a certain point in the field and they can score points. If you guys remember, Doug Peterson went on fourth down a lot in 2022. And the biggest reason was the team did not believe in Riley Patterson's leg strength. Now, he was an accurate kicker, but he had a very weak leg. The Jaguars have the opposite problem with Cam Little. There might be times where they can be justifiably, even sometimes, too cautious moving forward because they know their guy will make the kick. They don't need to gamble. So to me, Cam Little is an absolute weapon. It was an elite kick, and he's on his way to becoming an elite player, in my opinion, at the position. Offense. Get one series with the starters. I don't have too much on the second and third team offenses, but I thought the first team offense, there was some good and some bad. The good, I thought Trevor Lawrence looked good. I thought he looked decisive. The ball was coming out of his hand quick. He was getting rid of the ball, to me, a tick quicker than he has in the past. It looked like he was reading things out well. Now, of course, the Steelers weren't going to throw the kitchen sink at him. in terms of coverages or pressure looks or anything like that. But I thought Trevor looked good. Every ball was accurate. He didn't throw a single ball that, you were like, he'd like to have that one back. His lone incompletion to Brian Thomas, the safety made a really good play on it. And I don't think you should even consider that a drop by Brian Thomas because the safety just made a great play. But overall, Trevor Lawrence, he put the ball where it needed to be on every pass attempt. He did a good job. He scrambled one time and picked up 3 or 4 yards when there was nothing there, etc. I thought it was a really encouraging showing from Trevor Lawrence in terms of what you would want to see in a limited setting. Liam Cohen's offense in general, I thought showed some good things schematically. You saw a screen game some. You saw him get rid of the ball quickly. You saw how they're going to use the running game with a lot of pulling guards. There was a lot of motion. De'Ami Brown got involved, on design carry, which I think you will see a lot this year. So I think there were some positives from the offense. Now, as for the negatives for the offense, the penalties have just become, in my opinion, outrageous. And penalties since last Friday's scrimmage have been absolutely, to a point where it's starting to kind of, at least to me, show that it's frustrating Liam Cohen. I mean, Anton Harrison gets a false start in the first play of the game, and it wasn't even necessarily on Anton. Liam Cohen, and big reason I think gives great press conference answers. He explained how, part of that was on how Trevor Lawrence was, calling things at the line of scrimmage. So that obviously is an area that I think needs to be worked on. The run blocking in general. You only saw a couple carries from the starting offensive line, but you still would like to see more push, I would think. I think ultimately, though, the most interesting thing about the offense, and this to me was probably the most notable thing of the night, Travis Etienne gets 100% of the first team reps. He did not leave the field with the first team offense. Tank Bigsby did not get on it. He got 3 touches, 2 carries for a couple yards. Had one really nice play on a screen where he made a guy miss and was able to get a first down. Tank Bigsby ran exclusively with the second team. And, folks, this is not something that you've seen in training camp, in my opinion. In training camp, I think it's been clear that they've seen Tank Bigsby as their early down rusher. He leads the way a lot of time for the starting offense in training camp practices. He's the first guy in there and 11 on 11 with the first team offense. I'd say more often than not. But this was different. You saw Travis Etienne do it exclusively. And I think there's a good reason why. I think if you're Liam Cohen, there's a question on how good of a fit is Tank Bigsby. Because you saw why Tank Bigsby, to me, probably can't run away with this running back room. He is just not a viable player to have on the field in passing downs. He had a bad drop last night, and it comes up in practice. He's also not a very good pass protector. Tank Bigsby, for as hard as he runs, and he runs hard, he is an excellent downhill runner. He is just not a guy that you can have on the field in passing downs. And I think Liam Cohen wants a running back who you can have on those downs for the screen game, for pass protection. That could be something that Bayshaw Tootin can provide soon. But something that Travis Etienne provides right now. So, I've been banging the Tank Bigsby is going to lead the backfield drum all training camp. No more. I now think it is Travis Etienne's. I have seen the proverbial light on that. As for the defense, it was not the best showing. Liam Cohen himself said it after the game. He thought there was too much, soft off coverage. He said, expected to get a little stickier. It was almost, he made a good point. He said they did so much press coverage last year where they're at the line that it's almost like maybe they've gone too far the other way. But, Mason Rudolph diced them up. And it wasn't just the first string defense either. The second and third team defenses, just way too much room on the perimeter and down the field for the Steelers quarterbacks. Over 300 yards, over 400 or over 4 touchdowns allowed passing. The pass defense just looks like it needs to be tweaked hard by Anthony Campanile moving forward, and especially when it comes to preparing for Week 1 against the Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young, Tetora McMillan, and their host of receivers. Thank you guys for joining me for today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. Please make sure you remember to like, follow, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms.